All right. And Kevin and I were just talking. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but our classmate Janeda, her husband passed away over the weekend. He'd been ill, and we certainly pray for her. The university has reached out. The minister of the university has reached out, and we've all sent her an email. And so, those of you who are working with her, it's understandable that she may not be with you, and that's fine. I've told her that I'll work with her individually later on. So don't worry about that. We'll make sure that Janeda is caught up or at whatever level that she needs to. So we'll make sure that we accommodate her. Also, I heard from Nadej this week. Um, she's feeling better. She's got some medical treatment and she's on some medicine now, and she says she's improving. So our prayers go out to Nadej as well that her health will be better. So if you can, remember them in your prayers, if you would. Let me see. I'm gonna send that group let me send them. Let me go back again. I think. Let's see if the second one went through. Select term 60304. Let's see who we got in there. Okay, okay. Let me get out of that one. Let me get this one. Let me try this one. You gotta get back up to the top. Let me try to send another email here. See if this one works. Make sure everybody's with us. Says so. She comes through on my phone. Yeah. The other group should be. They should have gotten theirs now. I thought they both went out. This thing is wearing me out. All right. All right. There's Jim. All right. Everybody should have gotten theirs. I've sent them out a couple of times tonight. So just to be on the safe side, let's see. Okay. All right. Again, prayers for Nadej. Her health is improving. Prayers for Janeda, who lost her husband over the weekend, and the university has reached out to her. So, but if you can, that would be great as well. But at least remember both of them in our prayers. So moving along here, this is week 6. We're finishing up with student discipline this week. Your discussion board, and some of you turned them in and they were very good. Interview an AP or other disciplinarian. I have one who said they talked with 2 assistant principals, and one of them said use common sense, and I know that was Bruce Gilliam that said that. Bruce is one of my former students, so hopefully at Flat Rock Middle School, Bruce got the job this year, so hopefully Bruce is doing well, and so I know that's what he said. That's what he would have said, so I know that had to have been him. Assess student discipline plan, search, and seizure. So in that vein tonight, I have, this is from the NCDPI website. Let's see if I can get to it here. Share screen and go to All right, hopefully you can see that on your screen. This is, if you just simply Google North Carolina Public Instruction PBIS, and they have a PBIS website. And on that website, they have where you can apply for grants and some different things. But they also have an overview of PBIS. And so this is the extension of what we've been covering. We've talked about disciplinary data reporting. We've talked about acts of crime and violence. I've got my PowerPoint up for this week. Violence in schools. We've got all these things that talk about the exit end of it. Tonight's focus is on the front end. How do you prevent those things from happening? We talked about antecedent behaviors, the little things that lead to the big things, and you track those little behaviors, and you can predict the big bad things are going to happen from the little behaviors. How about let's stop all the bad behaviors? And so DPI has gotten behind the initiative for PBIS, and this is what is PBIS? It's a framework or approach comprised of intervention practices and organizational systems for establishing the social, culture, learning, and teaching environment, individual behavior supports needed to achieve academic and social success for all students. And here is the model that they have. And it includes the multi-tiered system of support. And it speaks to all these things. I'm not going to spend all this time tonight, but I'm going to put this link on week 6. Let me write myself a note to do that. I'm going to put this link on. I'm hoping that it will work. I've been having problems doing that lately. Put link to the DPI PBIS website. I'll put that on there, and you can review this. It's quite long and lengthy, but you can review this. But most every school district now is supporting PBIS. I actually have a doctoral student at 71st High School in Fayetteville who is attempting to implement PBIS even in the high schools. Traditionally, it's been more of a elementary and middle kind of thing, but high schools are even beginning to adopt it. What we're finding is it's more important to prevent things, and then you don't have to worry about reporting and all the bad things that come along with incidents happening in your school. And I've alluded to that before. Let me remind you of that. Let me see. Let me remind you, State Board of Education lists the number of offenses. If you have a high rate of these things happening over a 2-year period of time, you get declared persistently dangerous, and they'll restructure your school. That can affect more than just the administrators. And so we know that the little things lead to the big things, and the big things lead to sanctions against your school. So the idea here is to implement PBIS or some other behavior system, not just a discipline system, but a school-wide behavior system in your school to prevent all these bad things from happening to you. And so if your school doesn't do PBIS, your district's not involved, you really need to go to this website. We're getting really good results all over the state using PBIS. It's cutting down on suspensions. It's cutting down on behaviors. It's directing resources, time, effort, energy to solving the problem before it becomes a problem. And, I often tell students the best way to get out of a swamp is not to get into it to start with. And so that was one of the things when I was in charge of this in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, was one of my responsibilities was we need to work on your behaviors, not just figure out how to deal with it on the backside or do all these audits and all this thing. You need a system in your school. And one of the things that used to drive me crazy, everybody knows that in the state of North Carolina, every year a school has to file a school improvement plan. The evidence artifacts that you were doing models that same procedure. little known fact is when you, as a real live school in North Carolina, when you file your school improvement plan in the fall of the year, if the data from the previous school year showed that you exceeded the district average in acts of crime or violence, or if you exceeded the district average in out of school suspensions, or if you either of those exceeded the state average for a school similar to yours, you have to file an addendum to your school improvement plan called a safety plan. What you're going to do to address the fact that you had too many acts of crime and violence and too many out of school suspensions. You have to file an addendum to your school improvement plan. And one of the things, and an addendum, what that would be is something like PBIS. We're going to implement this program and start addressing our behaviors, at the classroom level before they become bigger, worse behaviors. And one of the things that used to drive me crazy when I would monitor these schools and I would go visit the principal to look at their school improvement plan, and then I'd have to ask them for their safety plan. And they would tell me that their safety plan was wearing school uniforms. And I first of all, I couldn't believe that we let people that dumb in the school business. Or that they actually, had gotten into leadership positions. That spoke to our inability to identify people who could, walk and chew gum at the same time. That was more about us who were picking them than it was about them. Wearing a school uniform is simply children behaving badly dressed similarly. That's not a plan. PBIS is the plan. For some reason, folks have this misguided notion that if you put kids in a uniform that they'll behave better. They will not. They will behave better. You teach them better behavior and you enforce a code of behavior on them, and your culture of your school is surrounding the proper kind of behavior. Simply wearing a uniform will not change behavior in any instance. The data proves me out. There's no research study anywhere that says simply putting uniforms on kids without any kind of training to go along with it has any impact whatsoever, academically or behavior-wise. So the idea here is you to, in your administrative toolkit, to have this. And so if your school does it, that's wonderful. You need to get involved and learn more about it. If your school doesn't do it, this is something that you should be looking at. Again, this is DPI's website. This is what they support. And they actually, and this is a long one, it goes through everything. They've got a video. They've got why we need it. I mean, they've got everything that you would have. They've got everything that you would have on their website here. And so it is well worth your time. Let me see if I do this. Where it will go, nowhere. There we go. So here is the actual website. Again, I will put this, and it's even got multi-tiered system of support. If you don't know what that is, that's outlined for you. We've talked about that. That's outlined for you on this website as well. So this is a wonderful resource. I will put this on our page as soon as we get through tonight. I've attempted in the past, but it wouldn't let me. Hopefully it will let me upload this page. They don't like it when pages open multiple pages, and I'll see if I can get around the filter and get this thing put on our page for tonight. It'll be on week 6, and here is the home page. And it's got all these. It's got a request for funding. It's got a lot of different things here, and I was under what is PBIS. So this is a wonderful resource for you. Let me close that out and close that out. We've already reviewed this information. Again, this is your incentive not to get in this fix. Again, once these incidents starts happening, it's too late. They tend to spawn more of these incidents. The smart administrator handles this as a system, a school-wide system, and understands the little things become the big things. And that's what my presentation in 2011 was about the antecedent behaviors that you can predict the big ones with the little ones. And so there's no behavior too small to address. And that's why I kind of get bent out of shape when people talk about, well, we don't report the minor stuff. Well, then you're ignoring the antecedent behaviors if you don't report the minor stuff that are later on going to become the big stuff. How do you know, how do you know if you don't have any data, how do you know where to direct your efforts? That means you don't have a plan. You're just hoping things don't happen. Hope's not a plan. Hope will not advance your career. Trust me. All right, so we've already covered that, and we've already looked at persistently dangerous, and so I'll close that. We looked at codes of conduct last week. We looked at a reporting manual last week. I do have a PowerPoint here for you, violence in schools, that has some numbers that are pretty alarming. You might want to take a look at this, and it speaks to all the numbers and the data behind why we need PBIS, and why we need to address these things in our school. It's, again, you can see it's a rather lengthy one, but you should spend a little time with this one. You can do it fairly quickly, but again, it's on violence in schools. It's on week 6, and it speaks to many of the things that kind of encapsulates everything that I have covered over the last 2 weeks. And so I have it all in one I apologize for the link to the PowerPoint, but it encapsulates all the ideas that I've brought forth in the last couple of weeks. And so you should spend a few minutes with that. Let's see. I think that's everything I want to cover on school violence. Met my time limit on it. I want to spend some time. I did last week, but I want to again this week. On our schedule this week of evidence, artifact, and peer review. On week 6, instructor-led meeting, discussion of the task prompts and rubrics. I did that last week. I want to run through it again to make sure that we understand what we're to do. And so, again, this is on our Blackboard page under task string. Again, task 1, what I'm seeing us fail to do is to review all of our special populations. That's not just EC, that's EC 504, limited English, gifted, the intervention team process, and Title I. Make sure that you review all those programs. You're going to need them in task 3. That review, go ahead and do it now, and then you're going to use it in task 3. And then the other is make sure that you make sure that let me send the student emailing. All right, make sure that you understand that the reason you're looking for the school improvements team's input in the budget is to make sure that the school improvement plan is being supported by the budget. It doesn't do any good to draw up a school improvement plan that and then you don't make sure your budget aligns with that, and the initiatives in your school improvement plan are not funded. That's of no value. And that's one of the things when I went out and supervised schools. That was one of the things, again, that I saw a lot of. I'd look at the budget, then I'd look at the school improvement plan, and they weren't aligned. And so my question to the principal would be, how do you expect to support this school improvement plan if you didn't align your budget, you didn't allot any money, resources, either human or fiscal resources, to these activities that you've got in your school improvement plan? And that's when I would get that dumb look like, well, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is you have this plan, but if it's unfunded, if you're not putting any human or physical capital behind it, how do you expect this plan to be carried out? And the answer would be, from the dumb ones, Well, we just, you know, the requirement was to make the plan. No, the requirement was to make the plan and carry it out. You know, short-sighted, short-term administrators that don't last very long don't seem to understand that you don't make that school improvement plan just to put a check in the box because, you know, somebody from the central office is going to come by and ask for it. You know, somebody like me is going to come by and ask for it. You make it to improve your school. And if you understand that it is a improvement process, then you have to put resources behind it. And so that's why we ask you to make sure that they do that. And again, you know, as I pointed out last week, in 115C 288, the state links those two together, and not accidentally. They have to be a couplet. One has to support the other. So make sure that you do that in task one. Task two, been some confusion on this one. If your most pressing need in your app cell, was academic, and then you extended that and in your app tel, and your staff development in your app tel was designed at instructional improvement, then you can copy and take the headers off of it so it doesn't refer back to the app tel. You can take task 2 and 3 of the app tel, put them together, and that becomes task 2 of the OMA. If you read the directions to yourself, I already did that. Didn't I already do that? And you say, yeah, you did. You did that in task 2 and 3 of the app tel. If you were working on instructional improvement, you come up with an action plan, basically a staff development plan in task 2 and 3 of the app tel to address instructional improvement or your most pressing need or instructional improvement in your building. Now, if you chose something, you know, something other than instruction, you'll have to write it from scratch. And that's why, you know, we've encouraged you to make sure that you looked at your data and you picked your most pressing need based on an instructional strategy, reading, math. Now, if you picked attendance or something like that, you're going to have to start from scratch and follow this prompt. But if what you did in the app cell and app tel was instructionally based, you've already got an action plan. You've already got a staff development plan to address improving instruction. So, you know, and it's just take the headings from the app tel off, put them together, and slap it in as task 2 of the OMA, and you're flying. You're good to go. All right, building a schedule. This is the one. Here's the part that people don't see that we're missing too many times. Assess the current scheduling procedure, strengths and areas for improvement, strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't say assess the current schedule. It says assess the current scheduling procedures. The worst thing you can do in a school, and I've seen it done, you know, and I've been guilty of it myself. I took over I became principal in a junior high school, which will remain nameless. That tells you my age. I was a junior high principal before I was a senior high principal. I took over a junior high school, and I got there, and the first thing I was told is, we have a problem. You know, you never like it when you're new and they tell you we've got a problem, but I've told you you're only new to lunchtime the first day. After that, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. You can't claim you're new 2 days in. They expect you to assume the problem. One of the, you know, I'm not a big Urban Meyer fan. I don't know if you know who Urban Meyer is. Urban Meyer is the football coach at Ohio State. Excuse me, the Ohio State University. And I'm not a big fan of his, but he said something recently, and I was 1,000% behind him. He said he was calling out one of his former assistant coaches, who's now a head coach at the University of Texas. His name is Tom Herman. And after the first week's loss at Texas, Tom Herman blamed the loss on somebody else's players. He didn't recruit those players. And Urban Meyer called him out immediately and said, those are your players. When you signed that contract, you became part of the problem or part of the solution. Those became your players. They're not somebody else's. They're yours. When you sign on in a school, it's your problem. It's not somebody else's. It doesn't matter who made it. It's your job to fix it. Well, I had to come in and fix a master schedule. The problem, and why I said it was a junior high school, is important. Junior high school has to run a mosaic schedule. And what a mosaic schedule means is you basically run a school within a school. You have a middle school schedule for your 7th and 8th grade, but your high school has to run a high school schedule. Because of Carnegie units, units of credit toward graduation. And what had happened is prior to my getting there, the former administrative team had decided that they would just go middle school. That the school in 2 years was going to become a middle school, and they were going to get a jump on it, even though they still had 9th graders. They were going to get a jump on the converting to middle school process. And so they made a middle school schedule, master schedule. Well, the problem with that is students were not getting enough time in required classes like English 1 in the 9th grade to get a full unit of credit at the end of the year. There's a seat hour requirement of 120 hours. They weren't going to get but about 100 hours, and the state wasn't going to give them a full credit for 9th grade English. That wasn't going to go well. So I had to come in and change the master schedule. That's the worst thing that you can do at school. I had to do it. That's the worst thing that you can do. But I learned my lesson. I knew it wasn't going to go well. When you start changing a bad schedule, it only makes it worse. What you do is you change the process of how that schedule was developed. I've told you before, these big whiteboards in the principal's office or the principal's conference room. They got all these stickies in these boxes all over them. How do you know where to put the stickies? Again, you have to have a system to develop a master schedule. The system starts with federal law. That's EC 504, LEP, AIG, Intervention Team, Title I. You have to start with all the rules and regulations, federal law that go along with those. Then you have to add all of your state law, which speaks to time, class size, and instructional time, how many minutes, that's what I'm talking about. State law says if you're in a 9th grade English class, you have to have 120 seat hours during the year. Those kinds of things have to be addressed secondly. Now, if they had followed a rationale in their scheduling at that junior high school that I assumed the principalship of, they would have known immediately, we can't do this. This won't give us enough hours of seat time for these 9th graders to get an English credit. Then you go to local board policy in terms of the state may require 90 minutes of reading for elementary kids. The local board may add another 30 minutes, as many of them did 3 or 4 years ago when we went to Reading 3D. Those of you in elementary school who know what I'm talking about, a lot of districts added another 30 minutes. That was a non-negotiable that principals had to put into the schedule. Boy, that upset the apple cart. I was at an elementary school on June 11th, Monday, June 11th that year. I'd stopped by on my way to Fayetteville to my class, and I stopped by this elementary school to visit some of my interns. And I got there, and boy, you're talking about a scramble going on. It was on Monday. I got there mid-morning, and they said, everybody goes off contract Friday, the 15th. And we got a call this morning from the central office that said that our master schedule had been rejected because we only had 90 minutes for reading, and the requirement was 120 because of the implementation of Reading 3D. And they had to go back and start a whole new master schedule. Again, they didn't have a system. They didn't bother to, federal law, state law, they didn't bother to check on what local board policies would be. And so they had to start all over again. And they had 5 days to get it done, or they were going to have to work for free. Federal law, state law, local board policy, then best research practices. That might be things like 90-minute classes versus 60-minute classes. It might be like teaching reading before lunch. It might be things like don't teach reading and math back to back. It could be some of those kinds of things. Those are best research practices. And only then do you get to teacher input. So the assessment is of the scheduling procedure. Do you start and follow that rationale or not? Is it factored in? Is it systematic? Do we work through each of these one at a time, starting with federal, or do we just do it randomly? Then you check to see if you're aligned with school improvement team findings. Let's say this year that we're focusing on math. Have we increased the amount of time that we have kids in math class, or how much time that we present math to them? We do that in our master schedule. You know, we have to make sure that we align it with our school and school plan. You know, legal requirements, diverse, exceptional populations, evidence of input from faculty, all those things, they support that first one. All of them support the first one. Again, that local initiative, when we talk about state, federal, state, local, that local includes your school improvement plan. And so all of these bullets or boxes under the first one support that first one. That's what they tell you you should be looking for. But again, make sure that you have them in order. They go federal, state, local, best practices, teacher input. They go in that order. Then you develop a new schedule, and I suggest only doing a draft of the old schedule. What things that you would change to better meet all of those requirements of the state, of the federal, state, local best practices for input. What would you do to change the existing schedule to better fit those priorities? That's what you do in 3. And 4, you simply reflect on your competencies. Okay, and then if you need more help, make sure you look at your rubric here. And it just supports your prompts and tasks. All right. All right, I'm gonna pause and catch my breath. Questions that you have about the OMA? Well, that's good. All right. I want to introduce the skip tonight. So let me move on down to it. I want to make sure I'm supposed to hit the next couple of weeks. So I want to hit the skip. I'm only going to talk about task 1 and task 2. All right. Here's the problem that we have with skip 1. Most common problem I have. Folks don't read the first prompt. You're to conduct a needs assessment to determine gaps in communication. I should see gaps in communication written into prompt 1. That's what you're doing, a needs assessment. You're trying to find out, why are we not connecting with parents? You know, that's the whole purpose of this. You're looking for gaps in communication between the internal and external communities. That means the school and the community, or teachers and parents. And potential opportunities for involvement of these communities and decisions that have direct impact on community and the school. A background description of the setting, clear statement of the purpose of the needs assessment. Again, the purpose of the needs assessment is to determine the gaps in communication. I see so many things there that have nothing to do with communication. Every time I get skip ones, I'm just amazed that nobody understands. This is about communication. A list of participants, analysis of the finding, a set of recommendations that identifies avenues of communication that will be established. A set of recommendations, short and long term. Let me explain what short and long term is. Short term would be to use ConnectEd to an email system like ConnectEd to get in touch with parents. Long term would be get those parents in for a family math night. The whole idea here is to connect with parents, start communicating, get them hooked, get them involved, and then be able to get them to school for something other than a ball game or an activity where you can help them help their child. You know, for some reason we have kind of forgotten the overall mission of public education. The overall mission of public education is for us as public educators to help parents educate their children. Let me say that again. Our job is to help parents educate their children, not just take it all upon ourselves to do. We need to involve them. And once we can get communication established and trust and communication established with them, then we can get them into our building for family math night, family reading night, family EOC night, family EOG night, all the things that we can get them into our building to do. For us to put something in their hand and for them to take home and work with their child. Now, I always have some wise guys that say, what about high schools? We don't do any of those kinds of things. One of the best skip I ever saw, the best one, hands down, was at Northwest Guilford High School. Diana and Keisha did it. They were two of my students and interns at Northwest Guilford. Wonderful principal there, wonderful school. If you were to Google, I don't know how you would find it. I guess Google could find it, or maybe you could go into DPI's website. If you could find the high school in North Carolina, Ralph Kitley's the principal there. Ralph's a great guy. If you Google which high school in North Carolina has the highest percentage of students taking advanced courses, you would find it would be Northwest Guilford. Now, that's not by accident. Their skip, Diana and Keisha, this has been 7 years ago. They partnered with Novant and did a career day in the gym where all these Novant and all of their medical partners, all these associated companies that are associated with Novant, did a career fair in the gym. But what they set it up where they brought in freshmen and sophomores, and each table had, this is the job, this is how much it pays, this is the college degree or degrees that it takes to get this job, and these are the advanced courses that you would need to take in high school to get into the college that would offer this as a major. They brought parents in. They did a connection. They did some electronic kinds of things where they connected with parents, and I went. This is not hearsay. I went. I did a couple of workshops with them, and I went and I was there for a couple of these things. They packed the house. They had every parent just about in their school was there. Walking through that gym and brought in freshmen and sophomores, as well as the juniors and seniors that you would normally see at something like that. But they brought freshmen and sophomores in. And clearly on every table it had, you'll need to take this advanced course, that advanced course. And so guess what happened? Those parents got involved. And so the point of having the parents there is when the course calendar came out in the spring and the course selection guide came home to the parent, or I think they did it electronically. It came home to the parent, still letting them sign up for 4 PEs. The parent was making sure they were signing up for those advanced courses, because they wanted them to, get in a good college, get a good job, and not live with them the rest of their life. And so, man, that thing took off. So there are ways, but the whole idea, the first thing we had to do there was connect with the parents. We had to figure out the gaps in communication. Why are we not being able to communicate with these parents? And once we established some avenues of communication, then we were able, once we had them hooked, to get them in. And then help us help your child. Help us help you educate your child. And that's what the skip is all about. So those short and long-term recommendations, short-term is how we're going to hook them. Long-term is what we're going to do with them once we got them hooked. Family math night, career fair, family EOC night, family EOG night, family reading night. There's all these kinds of things that you can do with parents to get them involved in their child's education. And things that you can put in their hands that they can take home and work with their child. That's the skip in a nutshell. And then prompt 2, you're gonna look at your school climate through your TWC. That one's pretty straightforward. You're gonna look at that, and then in task 2, you're going to identify the human and fiscal resources. That's the people and the money you're going to take to complete your skip, your school community involvement plan. Now, Funding necessary to accomplish short and long-term objective. Resource identification required to identify human capital. Now, here's my pet peeve on this one. Don't put staff. Don't put teacher. Either put position titles or name. Staff never did anything. You know, when you make out your plan eventually, you need to go ahead while you're identifying your resources, because this is going to become a part of your bigger plan. And probably the most important part is where we're going to get the people and the money to do it. You need to have, it needs to be realistic. Who's going to do this? Don't just put staff or teachers. That will never happen. You know, put Miss Rogers or Miss Green or Miss Brown or Mr. Blue. That's who's going to do this. And then, of course, you know, and then in task 3, you'll actually develop your marketing plan, you know, the whole thing. And the big heart of that plan is what you're going to do. And you did that in task 1. You came up from your needs assessment. This is our short term. This is our long term. These are going to be the people responsible. That's what human capital is. The person's responsible. And here's where the money's going to come from. And, you know, here's what we're trying to do. And that's going to become the heart. Once you get task 1 and task 2, that will be the heart of task 3, which is building your marketing plan. So make sure that you do that. All right. Then the cap is where you're looking at your cultural advocacy, but you're looking specifically at 5 areas. Let me get to task 1 here. You're looking specifically at 5 areas of the teacher working conditions survey in task 1. Empowerment, leadership, facilities, resources, and time. You don't have to include any others. We want you to focus on those 5. Now, leadership means school leadership. Empowerment means teacher leadership. Those are the classification headings in teacher working conditions survey. Don't send me an email that says, Dale, there's no empowerment in my TWC. That's teacher leadership is empowerment. School leadership is what is referred to as leadership here. DPI wants us to focus on these 5 for the cap. Now you can put, you know, student management of student behavior. You can add whatever you want, but you can't not have these 5. That's the biggest problem I see. You look at those 5 areas. You pick 1 or 2 key items from those that are the lowest at your school. And then what you're going to do, you're going to develop a needs assessment. But what you're going to do in your next prompt is you're going to find out, you're going to survey those same 5 key items, one at least from each of those 5 areas, back out to your faculty and say, are these things really a problem in our school? Say, well, Dale, they've already told. Well, but they answered those questions among hundreds of others, or over 100 questions in all those 12 different sections of the TWC. We're focusing on these 5 key items now, 1 from each of those 5 that you see on the screen there. Is this really a problem? And so you resurvey those back out again. And then you're going to go out when it comes time to do your qualitative piece, and you're going to ask people, why are these low? Sometimes your numbers don't tell the story. So you will go out, reassess through a needs assessment those 5 key items. You will eventually then do qualitative work in the next prompt where you ask, you know, is this really a problem? Tell us what would be a good idea to fix that. We'll do recommendations, and you'll develop an action plan for that one as well. But the key here is right there in prompt 1. It has to be these 5. And you pick the lowest one from each of those 5 and run with it. If you do that, you can't go wrong. The way that you go wrong on this one, if you don't pick those 5, or you read those 5, and then after prompt 1, you forget about them and do something else. No, that 5 stays with you all the way through. Task 1, the first prompt, you look for your key items. You needs assess and survey those same 5 areas, 5 key items from them. You do your qualitative work around those key items from those 5 areas, and then your action plan is around those 5 areas and those key items. Those 5 stay with you all the way through. You don't just do them in task 1 and then do something else in task 2. No, those 5 areas with their at least one key item from them stay with you all the way through your CAP. And if you keep that in mind, you'll be fine. It goes really fast. This is the quickest one. This one takes the least amount of time. It's really fast to do if you stay on task. If you remember, I'm only interested in the key items from these 5 areas. If you keep that in mind, you'll be golden on the CAP. It'll be really easy. And, you know, you may find yourself being able to knock out more than one task on the CAP. This questions on what we're supposed to cover in terms of the OMA, skip task 1 and 2, CAP task 1. Any questions on those? Be mindful of your pacing. Don't let the semester get away from you. This is the beginning. Well, this is the middle now of week 6. You should be approaching. You should be at task 3 in the OMA by now. You need to be moving along. And if you're slow on your peer reviews, that's okay. Continue to write the next task. You can write the next task before you finish and before you get one already completely wrapped up. You can already write the next one. Don't let peer review slow you down. You can go back and edit your previous task. Keep those tasks rolling on out. You should be writing task 3 now, and sometime around week 8, you should be writing task 4, which will be the end of it. And then, week 10, you should have skip task 1. Around week 11, skip task 2. Week 12 to 13, cap task 1. You should have all of them in the bag by week 14. So you need to self-pace. I know you've got coaches that help you. Some of you are mine, and I coach like Chris is mine. Nicole, Kevin. So we should be around. I had a session for my legacies last Sunday. We talked about all this stuff. I do my roundtables on Sunday because we've got one of our classmates is in Hawaii, and she's on a 6-hour differential on time, and so Sunday afternoon is the best time to be able to get her. It's my best time as well. And so we had our session last Sunday. So I hope you're having sessions with your coaches, but be mindful of your pacing. You should be on 3 now and wrapping it up pretty soon and moving to 4. Questions you have for me? All right. Okay, we've wrapped up the discipline. We'll move to week 7 next week. Let's look at our course calendar again. As we finish up tonight. Next week, we're going to talk about technology, social media, and cyber issues. I had you examine the school or district policy on cyberbullying. Citing policy, explain your response to a parent presenting evidence of cyberbullying at your school. That will be for next week. And then we'll have the following week, we'll be off for our spring break. So we got one more week before spring break. So we need to, I'm hoping that over spring break that you will wrap up the OMA, as I said, and have it ready for submission by week 8. That's one of the reasons why I gave you that week off. It's probably a week or so earlier than I would have liked to have gone, but I want you to wrap up your OMA that week. I'm giving you the week off and don't have any tasks or anything else to do. So I'm hoping that you will wrap it up and put it all together and get it ready for task string that week. And then by week 8, you can move on to skip. Be mindful of your pacing. All right. I see I've gone 4 minutes over. That's pretty normal for me. Not doing bad, though. Questions you have for me on anything that I've covered tonight? I'm always available. We can Zoom privately. We can email. We can talk on the phone. Don't suffer. There is no dignity in suffering because you don't know what to do. The only dignity in suffering is not being able to get it all done. That you're so excited and you have so much to do, you can't get it all done. There's no dignity in struggling to know what to do. We'll help you figure out what to do. Just let us know. Just let me know or let your coach know. We'll be glad to give you extra time or effort or extra coaching. Be glad to. I'll do it in their place if you want me to. Just let's just keep this thing. Let's keep the train rolling. Again, prayers for Nadej. Her health is improving. She told me this week. Prayers for her. Again, prayers for Janeda, our classmate who lost her husband over the weekend. The university has reached out to her through the campus ministry. We've all sent her email with best wishes. Those of you who've been working with her, please be mindful of that, and that we will catch her up later. So you folks continue on. I will see you all next Wednesday, same time, same place. If the email will send out, I had to send them a couple times tonight, but otherwise I'll see you next week. So thank you for joining me as usual. I'll see you next week.